The Galactic Council had warned humanity again and again. Their messages filled the stars with the same cold words: withdraw from forbidden space. Stop your expansion. Do not test our patience. But Earth did not listen. At first, the Council thought it was arrogance, that old human pride again. But they didn't understand. Humanity had spent centuries crawling from the ashes of their own mistakes. Every time someone told them you can't, they proved that they could. They reached the moon, Mars, the stars. And when the Council told them to stop, they only built faster ships and stronger fleets in the Council chamber. Great alien delegates argued for hours about what to do. Some said humanity was reckless. Others said they were dangerous. The oldest among them, the Voth Elder, warned that humanity's silence was never a good sign. He remembered their history, the way they fought when cornered. But no one listened to him either. On Earth, people had stopped caring about the Council's orders. The Council had banned colonization beyond the Outer Rim. Human explorers had already sent messages from New World's rich, bright planets full of oceans and sunlight. The Council saw this as defiance. Humanity saw it as survival. When the final warning came, it was no longer a request. The Council broadcasted it on every human channel: withdraw your fleets or face exile from all galactic systems. The message echoed for days. Then, suddenly, Earth went silent. No replies. No transmissions. No ships leaving their docks. The great human colonies that had filled trade routes vanished from radar. The Council celebrated. They believed humanity had finally submitted. Weeks passed. Then months. The galaxy returned to its usual noise: politics, trade, and distant wars. Only a few noticed the strange pattern. Small ships disappearing near the edge of human space. Traders reported shadows moving behind moons, engines lighting up where no colonies were listed. But the Council dismissed the reports. They said humans were simply rebuilding. Then, one quiet night on the capital world of Arcalis, the Council's deep space sensors began to scream. Thousands of alerts filled the control rooms. Officers shouted, adjusting their screens. Something massive was coming from the edge of the void. Energy signatures unlike anything recorded before. Is it pirates? Someone asked. No. It's too big. How many ships? The technician's voice broke. Too many to count. The Council summoned an emergency meeting. Massive holograms of the galaxy spun in the center of the chamber, red dots blinking near human space. Each blink was a ship, and the blinks were spreading fast. They can't be human, one delegate said, his voice shaking. Humans don't have that kind of power. But as the images grew clearer, everyone recognized the design's angular hulls, massive thrusters, the sharp metallic edges of human warships. The Council head leaned forward. How many? The officer whispered. More than 10,000. The room fell silent. No one spoke for several minutes. Outside, lightning storms danced across Kalis's purple sky as the great minds of the galaxy tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Humanity, the youngest of the starfaring races, had built a fleet that dwarfed every known power. When the Council finally broadcasted a message, it went unanswered. They sent dozens more. Still silence. The humans were coming, but they said nothing. At first, the Council hoped the fleet would stop. Maybe it was just a show of force. Maybe it would turn away. But the ships kept moving, crossing border after border, moving with impossible precision. No hesitation, no formation changes. They were like a storm. Then came the reports from the outer stations. Fleets passing through without firing, without slowing down. Just a shadow over each world, then gone. One planet's sky darkened for hours as thousands of ships passed overhead, blocking out the stars. Children cried, adults watched in silence. The human fleet didn't attack. It simply kept going. By the time it reached Council space, fear had already spread through the galaxy. Every species watched the broadcast feeds, the black silhouettes filling the skies of Arcalis. The air itself seemed heavier. On the planet's surface, citizens looked up and saw the first ships break through the clouds. Each one was the size of a city, glowing with blue engines, and lined with strange red scars. They moved in silence, forming a wall in the heavens. The light of the suns dimmed, and the sky turned black. Inside the council tower, alarms blared. Defense fleets scrambled to their positions, but even the admirals hesitated. They had never seen ships this large. They had never seen thrusters that bright. "Should we fire?" one commander asked. "No," said the head counselor, his voice shaking. "We don't even know why they're here. The humans didn't fire either." Their fleet hung above the capital world like a shadow frozen in the stars. The tension was unbearable. Every communication channel was open, waiting for a signal. Every eye in the galaxy watched and waited, and then at last, a single voice broke the silence. It came through every frequency, translated into every language. Calm, deep, unmistakably human. "Council command," it said. "This is humanity." The words echoed across the stars. No threat, no demand. Just a statement that felt heavier than any weapon. The council waited for more, but the voice didn't continue. The message repeated once, then ended. The human fleet didn't move. It just stayed there, silent, endless, and cold. Panic spread through the capital. Some ships tried to flee. Others powered up their weapons, though no one dared to shoot first. The council chamber filled with fear and confusion. "Why won't they talk?" Someone shouted. "Maybe they want us to speak first." "No," said the Voth Elder again, his voice low. "Humans don't come to talk when they've already warned you. They come to remind you." Outside, the sky glowed with the blue light of 1,000 human engines. The ships began to shift, spreading out across orbit like a net. The people on the ground could see the sunlight returning between the gaps, then vanishing again as more ships arrived. The council tried one last broadcast, their voices trembling. "Humanity, this is the Galactic Council. State your purpose." The reply came moments later, the same deep voice as before. "You told us to withdraw." Pause. "So we did. But now, we return not for permission. For reckoning." The message ended. The fleet remained silent from the surface. The people of Arcalis could see it, the sky itself, dark as night in the middle of day. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council understood fear, because this time it was not the humans who were being warned, it was them. The council chamber had never felt so heavy. Every seat was filled, every screen alive with numbers, warnings, and live feeds of the human fleet above Arcalis. The delegates from 100 worlds whispered in fear, their voices trembling as they watched the black wall of ships hanging motionless in orbit. From the capital's surface, the people could see them too. Thousands of ships stretching from horizon to horizon, blocking out the sun. The world's oceans reflected their dark forms like shadows made of steel. The once bright skies had turned dim and cold. At first, the council thought the humans might be bluffing. Maybe it was an empty show of strength. But the longer the fleet stayed silent, the more terrifying it became. No communication. No movement. Just presence overwhelming, absolute. Military officers rushed through the corridors, their scales, feathers, and metallic limbs reflecting the red warning lights. The command center buzzed with panic. "Try again," ordered the head counselor, his long hands gripping the edge of the console. "Send a hail on every frequency." The technicians nodded. "We've tried 67 times, sir." "They're receiving, but not replying." "Then send a demand. Tell them to identify themselves." "They already did," one officer whispered. "They said their humanity." Those words hung in the air like a curse. Across the city, defense cannons powered up. The magnetic shields flickered to life, glowing faint blue above the skyline. Hundreds of small defense ships rose from launch bays, forming desperate patterns in the sky. But beside the vast human warships, they looked like insects facing a storm. "Do not fire," the counselor warned. "If you fire, we all die." But even as he spoke, fear began to take control. Soldiers whispered among themselves. Some called it an invasion. Others said it was judgment. No one wanted to believe that humanity, once the Council's youngest and most hopeful race, could have built such power in silence. In a dark corner of the chamber, the Voth elder closed his eyes. His voice was soft but carried through the noise. "They warned us," he said. "Not once, not twice, but for years. We took their defiance as arrogance. We never thought it might be pain," no one replied. The fleet remained still. Then suddenly, one of the smaller ships broke formation. A dark silhouette detached from the main group and began descending toward the planet. "Something's coming down," shouted a radar operator. "Single vessel, low speed, no weapons charged." Every eye turned to the live feed. The ship was sleek and black, its surface covered in strange glowing lines. It glided through the clouds, ignoring every defense warning. When it entered the atmosphere, the sky rippled like water around it. "Shields won't stop it," muttered a commander. "Whatever it's made of, it's beyond us." Panic spread. Cities went into lockdown. Streets emptied as sirens wailed through the capital. The ship descended lower and lower until it hovered above the council plaza. The heart of the galaxy's most powerful government, then it landed. The ground trembled slightly. Steam hissed from the edges of its hull. For a moment, no one moved. Then, the hatch opened. A single figure stepped out. He was human, unmistakably so. No helmet, no visible weapon. He wore a dark suit of armor that shimmered faintly under the alien sun. His eyes were calm, but his expression carried something old. Something tired guards surrounded him immediately. Weapons raised, he didn't flinch. "I'm not here to fight," he said quietly. His voice carried through every broadcast channel in the city, as if the very air repeated his words. The guards hesitated. The council watched through the giant monitors, breathless. "I bring a message," the man continued. "From humanity." One of the guards stepped closer. "What message?" The man raised his gaze to the sky. "You warned us to stop. You told us to kneel, to obey. But you forgot humanity does not kneel." His voice grew colder. "For centuries, you judged us. You limited us. You took our colonies and called it law. You sent ships to destroy what we built. And still we endured. You said we were reckless, but it was you who played with fire." He took one slow step forward, and though he was surrounded, no one dared move. "We do not come to beg. We do not come to explain. We come to remind us of what?" asked the head counselor, his voice barely steady. The human's eyes met his. "Of what happens when humanity is ignored?" Silence filled the plaza. The only sound was the low hum of the ship behind him. Then he reached into his armor and pulled out a small device, a silver cube that projected a hologram into the air. It showed dozens of planets, each marked with red lights. "These," he said, "are the colonies you destroyed. Families, scientists, children. You called it enforcement. We called it murder." The image changed, now showing the council fleets years ago, firing on human ships. The recordings were clear, undeniable. The chamber fell silent as the truth unfolded before everyone. Then the hologram vanished. The man placed the cube on the ground. "This is not vengeance," he said. "It's balance." He looked up at the cameras, knowing the entire galaxy was watching. "Prepare for the reckoning." Before anyone could stop him, the man pressed a button on his wrist. A beam of light surrounded him, and in an instant, he was gone, teleported back to his ship. The vessel lifted off without sound and shot into the sky. Disappearing into the black wall above, the council was left frozen. The words echoed in their minds, "Prepare for the reckoning." Then, slowly, every ship in orbit began to move. The human fleet shifted formation, spreading across the planet's orbit like a storm circling its prey. The engines burned bright blue, and their weapons hummed to life. "Are they attacking?" Someone shouted. "No," said the Elder Voth quietly. "Not yet." Above the capital world, the stars vanished once more as the fleet aligned its cannons. And below, on the surface of Arcalis, the people lifted their eyes to a sky that no longer belonged to them, because the storm had arrived. And it spoke with the voice of humanity. The council chamber was silent. The air itself seemed heavy, thick with the fear that no one dared to name. The message from humanity still echoed in every mind. Prepare for the reckoning. No one spoke for several minutes. Some stared at the holoscreens showing the human fleet above Arcalis, their ships drifting in perfect formation like shadows of titans. Others whispered quietly, hoping someone else would act first. Finally, the head counselor stood, his pale hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his cloak. This cannot be real, he said. They wouldn't dare attack the council directly, a voice from the corner replied coldly. They already have. The speaker was Admiral Serthos, commander of the Council Defense Fleet. His golden eyes reflected the images of the warships above. They came here without warning. They entered restricted space. They ignored every defense protocol. What more proof do you need? The counselor turned to him, his voice rising. Then what do you suggest, Admiral? War? Against that? He pointed to the massive fleet filling the skies. They'll destroy us in minutes. Serthos said nothing. From another seat, the Voth elder spoke softly, his voice slow and calm. You cannot fight them. You do not understand humanity. They do not bluff. When they say reckoning, they mean it. But it will not be mindless. Several delegates turned toward him, confusion in their faces. You speak as if you know them, one said. I do, the elder replied. I studied their species long before they joined the council. They build when they are afraid. They fight when they are cornered. And when they are silent? He paused, looking toward the holographic projection of the fleet. They are planning. We're spread through the chamber like cold air in the command center above the chamber. The operators were struggling to keep up. Reports flooded in from every corner of the system. Human ships were spreading out across orbit, surrounding the planet in tight rings. No weapon fire yet, but their cannons were charged, glowing faint blue. They're scanning us, said a technician. Every defense platform, every ship, every satellite. Are they preparing to attack? Asked a nervous voice. No, the technician said slowly. They're studying us. Down in the capital streets, fear had already turned to panic. Citizens rushed into shelters. The skies above were dark, thousands of human ships blocking the sun. The once bright city lights now glowed under the reflection of the blue thrusters that hung motionless above. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Every broadcast screen showed the same feed. Humanity's fleet waiting in complete silence. Broadcasters whispered rumors that humanity had built weapons beyond understanding, that their ships were powered by dark matter, that they had allied with ancient machines. None of it was confirmed. All of it was believed. Back in the chamber, the council's arguments grew louder. We must strike first, shouted one of the younger delegates. Show them that the council still holds power. Strike them, another scoffed, and bring destruction on every world under our rule. You would doom us all. The shouting continued until the head counselor slammed his staff against the floor. Enough, we will attempt contact again. The technicians opened all channels. Human Command, this is the Galactic Council. You have entered restricted space. State your intentions. Static then, a deep, calm voice replied, the same one that had spoken before. You already know our intentions? The counselor tried again, struggling to sound composed. If this is about the colonies, we can negotiate. The attacks were misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? The voice grew sharper. Your fleets burned our worlds. You erased our settlements and called it regulation. You silenced us when we begged for mercy. And now you speak of peace? We did what was necessary for balance, said one delegate weakly. Balance, the human repeated, his tone colder now. That word cost millions of lives. The channel went dead. The counselor stared at the dark screen, pale and shaking. They're not listening, he whispered. The Voth elder rose from his seat. Of course they're not. You ignored their pleas for years. Why should they hear yours now? Another officer burst into the room. Sir, the human fleet is repositioning. The holographic map in the center of the chamber flickered to life. Thousands of red dots began to shift around the planet, forming a pattern, a perfect ring of ships in orbit. What are they doing? Asked the counselor. Encirclement pattern, the officer replied. Classic siege formation. But they're not aiming at us. Not aiming. No, sir. They're targeting the moons. Our defense relays. Outside, brilliant flashes lit up the night sky as beams of blue energy tore through space. The human fleet wasn't attacking the planet, they were disabling its defense network. One by one, the satellites exploded in bursts of fire and metal. On the surface, the people of Arcalis looked up as the pieces burned through the atmosphere like shooting stars. Some believed it was the end. Others watched in silence, awed by the precision of the attack. Not a single shot hit the planet itself. In the chamber, alarms screamed. "They've taken out our communications grid," shouted an officer. "Shields. Still active, but we're blind beyond orbit." The head counselor gripped the table tightly. "Why aren't they finishing it? Why not destroy us now?" The Voth elder looked up at the ceiling, as if speaking to someone unseen. "Because this is their message. They want us to see. To understand." The counselor frowned. "Understand what? That they don't need to destroy us to win." The words chilled everyone. Outside, the fleet slowly stopped firing. The sky grew quiet again. Only the silent, dark forms of the ships remained, glowing faintly in the night. Then, every screen across the planet flickered. The image of a human appeared, the same messenger who had landed earlier. His eyes were calm, almost sorrowful. "Counsel," he said, his voice soft but powerful. "You thought power meant control? You thought fear would keep the galaxy quiet. But power does not come from fear. It comes from unity, something you destroyed long ago." He paused. "Humanity does not seek your throne. We seek your truth. And when the truth is gone, we rebuild it our way." The feed ended. The council sat frozen. Outside, the human fleet began to move again, not toward the planet this time, but toward the stars beyond. "Are they leaving?" One delegate asked. "No," said the Voth elder. "They're showing restraint. But restraint is not mercy." The head counselor's voice cracked. "Then what are they waiting for?" The elder's gaze lingered on the ships fading into the distance. "They're waiting," he said slowly, "for us to make another mistake." And above the world of Arcalis, the black fleet of humanity drifted in silence, patient, watchful, and ready to remind the galaxy that they were done being ignored. The council tower stood silent beneath the dark sky. The stars above Arcalis were gone, hidden behind the unending mass of human warships. It had been days since the first appearance of the fleet, and the tension had only grown heavier. The people of the capital no longer spoke loudly. Every street, every hall, every broadcast whispered the same question: what will humanity do next? Inside the chamber, the atmosphere was suffocating. Every delegate sat rigid in their seat, afraid to speak, afraid to move. The air smelled faintly of ozone from the constant stream of holograms and power surges. "They're still in orbit," said one of the operators, his voice thin. "No attacks in the last 20 hours? No new transmissions?" The head counselor rubbed his temples. He hadn't slept. None of them had. "They're waiting for something," he murmured. "But what?" Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. The giant holographic display in the center of the room distorted, flashing static across the walls. The sound of a deep hum filled the chamber, not from their equipment, but from above. Outside, people pointed to the sky as one of the massive human ships began to descend. It was larger than any before, a dark fortress with long wings of silver metal and glowing blue lines tracing across its hull. The engines burned like captured suns. It passed through the clouds without sound, moving straight toward the capital. "Another landing?" the counselor whispered, standing from his seat. The technicians confirmed. "Single ship, no escorts, trajectory locked on the council plaza. Energy readings stable, no active weapons." The delegates looked at one another in confusion and dread. "Shall we intercept?" asked Admiral Serthos. "No," said the Voth elder softly. "Let them come." Moments later, the great vessel hovered above the plaza. A cold wind swept through the streets as its shadow covered half the city. The ship opened its lower bay, and a glowing platform lowered toward the ground. When the light faded, a figure stood at its center, the same human emissary who had appeared before. His armor was still black. Faint cracks of silver now glimmered along its surface. His eyes reflected the blue light of the ship above. Slowly, he stepped forward, and once again. Every broadcast camera in the city turned toward him. He spoke with the same calm tone as before, his voice echoing across the plaza and through every communication channel. "I warned you," he said. "Humanity remembers everything." A dozen council guards surrounded him immediately, weapons raised, hands trembling. He didn't seem to notice. "Why have you come again?" demanded the head counselor through the broadcast link. "Your fleet threatens our world. What do you want from us?" The human raised his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "What we want," he repeated quietly. "Justice and memory." The crowd that had gathered around the plaza fell completely silent. Even the wind stopped. The human continued, his voice now stronger. "When your fleets came to our colonies, you said it was regulation. When your weapons burned our homes, you said it was balance. You called us reckless, dangerous, unfit for the stars." He paused, his jaw tightening. "But you were wrong. You feared us because you saw what we could become." He took a slow step forward. The guards stepped back instinctively. "For every law you wrote to chain us, we built something stronger. For every colony you destroyed, we built 10 more in secret. You thought exile would break us." His eyes glowed faintly blue. "It forged us instead." A murmur spread through the council chamber as his words echoed on the live feed. The head counselor tried to sound firm. "You speak of the past, human. The council maintains order across thousands of worlds. Without us, chaos would reign."
Ow.
The emissary's expression darkened. "You speak of order, yet you brought only silence. You silenced entire species that defied you. You silenced voices that begged for mercy. Even now, you hide behind that word, order." He looked toward the sky, where the enormous fleet shimmered above the clouds. "We learned your kind of order. We learned it very well." The counselor's voice wavered. "Are you here to destroy us?" The human looked back at him, calm again. "If we wanted destruction, the stars would already be ash." "No, counselor, we came to remind you that humanity does not forget, and we do not forgive so easily." He lifted his wrist. In a beam of light projected a hologram into the air, a map of the galaxy, filled with red marks across dozens of systems. "These are your strongholds, your command worlds, your shipyards. Every one of them is within reach of our fleets." The council members stared in disbelief. The map covered nearly half the known galaxy. "We are not conquerors," the emissary said softly. "We are witnesses. We will not rule your worlds, but we will make sure the galaxy remembers what the council did to ours." The head counselor rose from his seat, his voice trembling with anger and fear. "You can't threaten the entire galaxy. If you do this, you will unite every race against humanity." The emissary's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "You think we care about being outnumbered?" He gestured toward the sky. "We already are." Then his expression hardened again. "Tell your people this. Humanity does not seek revenge. But if one more colony falls, one more human world burns, we will erase your council from every map that exists." He pressed a button on his wrist, and the hologram vanished. The plaza filled with light as the beams surrounded him once more. "Wait," shouted the counselor. "What does this mean? What happens now?" The human's eyes met his through the projection feed. "Now, counselor," he said quietly, "you live with what you created." And in a flash of white light, he was gone. The ship rose slowly into the sky, joining the fleet once more. From the surface, the people watched as the human armada began to move. It did not fire. It did not destroy. Instead, it drifted across the horizon, blocking out the sun as it spread across the heavens like a living storm in the command chambers. Alarms began to blare again, not from attack, but from data streams flooding in. Every council database, every military terminal, every communications hub began displaying the same message, written in every known language. Humanity remembers. The counselors could only stare. The message repeated over and over, glowing like fire through every system in the galaxy, and above the planet. The fleet formed one final formation, a ring of light around Arcalis, then vanished into the darkness of space, leaving behind only silence. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council realized they were not untouchable. The humans had not come to destroy them. They had come to show them something far worse. Their time of power was over, and in that heavy silence, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The first shot came without warning. A blinding streak of blue light ripped through the void above Arcalis, so bright that even those on the planet's surface saw it flash across the darkened sky. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then came the thunder. The air trembled. The ground itself seemed to hold its breath. Every alarm in the council tower erupted at once. The command screens filled with alerts. Dozens of red warnings flashed across the holographic map of orbit. "They've opened fire." Someone screamed, "On us!" shouted the head counselor. The answer came a second later. "Negative. They're firing on the outer defense grid sector for orbital cannons. Gone." Outside the windows of the chamber, the sky lit up in a dance of blue and gold. Human beams carved through the void, precise and controlled. Each one found its mark: defense satellites, communication stations, automated missile platforms. The explosions were brilliant, almost beautiful, cascading across the heavens like falling stars, but not a single shot struck the planet. "Admiral!" Serthos slammed his fist against the console. "They're disabling our weapons." "They're sparing us?" The Voth Elder's voice was quiet. "No, they're sending a message." From the surface, billions of citizens stared upward. The Black Fleet moved like a living creature, coordinated, disciplined, terrifying. Its weapons glowed blue, but every blast avoided cities and settlements. Instead, the human ships erased only what could threaten them. "They're dismantling the Council's power," whispered one news anchor, his voice shaking as the broadcast captured the spectacle above. Piece by piece. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Commands were shouted, countermanded, and forgotten. Defense officers tried to raise the planetary shields, but every command system failed one by one. The humans weren't destroying them, they were hacking them, taking control remotely. "Counselor," cried an officer, "they've accessed our defense codes." "How? That's impossible." "It's not," the officer said grimly. "They've been preparing for this. They know our systems better than we do." The counselor stared helplessly at the screens. One after another, red warnings turned to green. The human fleet was taking control of the entire defense network. On the surface, power grids flickered. Every communication line connected to the council went dark, replaced by a single symbol, the flag of Earth. "Council command," a voice said suddenly, calm, deep, unmistakably human. It echoed through every device, every broadcast, every ship. "You have been disarmed." The chamber fell silent. "We have no wish to harm civilians. We target only your weapons, the ones you used against our people." "You called it regulation. We call it tyranny." The voice paused. "You've ruled through fear for centuries. Consider this your last reminder. Humanity fears nothing now." Then the transmission ended. The counselors stared at each other, their faces pale and empty. From the balcony of the tower, the head counselor stepped outside, trembling as he looked up at the black sky. Thousands of ships hovered motionless, their blue engines pulsing softly like distant hearts. "What do we do now?" asked Admiral Serthos, standing beside him. The counselor didn't answer. He could feel the eyes of the galaxy watching. The broadcasts were still running, showing the entire event across countless worlds. Every species, every civilization was witnessing it, the mighty Galactic Council, humbled by the very race it once called reckless. And yet, despite the destruction, there was order in the chaos. No cities burned. No lives were lost. Humanity was demonstrating power, not cruelty. Back inside the chamber, the Voth Elder spoke softly. "They could have destroyed us all in seconds. Instead, They chose to show restraint. Do you understand what that means? The counselor shook his head. It means they're warning us. No, said the elder, eyes fixed on the sky. It means they're teaching us. Outside, the last of the orbital cannons fell silent. The explosions faded. The light from the ships dimmed. For a long while, nothing moved. Then, slowly, one of the largest human warships descended lower, casting its massive shadow across the capital. On its hull, giant words glowed in white letters, words translated into every known language across the galaxy. We do not conquer. We remember. The people below stared, unable to look away. Some wept. Others fell to their knees. No one cheered. There was nothing to celebrate. In the distance, the fleet began to reform. The ships turned in perfect harmony, their thrusters igniting in waves of blue light. They rose higher, drifting toward the edge of the system, leaving behind only silence and the smell of ozone in the upper atmosphere. Are they retreating? Asked Sirthos, almost disbelieving. For now, the elder replied, but not forever. The counselor clenched his fists. They can't just attack us and leave. We'll rebuild. You'll do nothing, the elder interrupted quietly, because now the galaxy has seen. The council's power is broken not by war, but by truth. Below them, the people of Arcalis emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the thinning clouds, the stars slowly returning. For the first time in generations, the sky above the capital was free, but it didn't feel like victory. As the last human ship vanished into the void, a single transmission appeared across every communication network in the galaxy. It was short, only one sentence. Next time, we won't aim for your ships. The message repeated once, then faded into static. And in that static, the galaxy heard something deeper. Not rage, not hatred, but a promise. Humanity had been patient. They would not be patient again. Silence fell over the galaxy. Days passed, then weeks. The human fleet had vanished beyond known space, leaving behind wreckage and fear. The stars above Arcalis shone again, but their light brought no comfort. Every council world felt the same cold shadow, the weight of humiliation. The once mighty galactic council was fractured. Systems that had obeyed without question now hesitated. Some even whispered rebellion. News broadcasts from across the galaxy replayed the same footage again and again, the human fleet darkening the sky. The voice saying, "You have been disarmed." In the council tower, the head counselor sat alone. His advisors had stopped arguing days ago. Every decision felt meaningless now. The council's fleets were grounded, their weapons useless, their pride shattered. "Status report," he said at last. His voice was hoarse, his eyes hollow. A trembling officer stood before him. "Council communications are still unstable. Human encryption is everywhere. We're slowly regaining system control. But what?" The officer swallowed. "Every time we regain one system, another goes dark. They're not destroying anything. It's like they're watching us." The counselor's expression tightened. "Spying?" "Yes, sir. Quietly, efficiently. We can't trace them. It's as if they're already inside our networks." Outside the tower, the city of Arcalis had changed. Billboards that once displayed council propaganda now showed empty static. Markets were quiet, patrol ships grounded. The people had begun asking dangerous questions no one dared to answer. Then, one night, the sky lit up again. Not with weapons this time, but with symbols across the heavens. Enormous patterns appeared, traced in light by unseen ships. Every symbol represented a human colony destroyed long ago by council decree. The names appeared one by one: Erebos Prime, Kestrel, Nova Helios, Sol Frontier. Billions watched from the ground in silence. On every screen, on every world. A message appeared beneath the glowing names: "We remember those you erased." The broadcast spread faster than light. Civilizations across the galaxy saw the same thing. People began whispering in fear and in awe. In the tower, the counselors gathered again, pale and shaken. "This is psychological warfare," said Admiral Sirthos. his claws tapping nervously against the table. "They want to break us from within." The Voth elder shook his head slowly. "No, they're not trying to break us. They're forcing us to look." "Look at what?" demanded the counselor. "At the truth," the elder replied. "For too long, we pretended that our rule brought peace, but it brought silence. And now, humanity is forcing the galaxy to remember what peace built on fear really means." The counselor turned away from the window. "We can't let them control the narrative. They'll make us look like monsters." The elder's voice was quiet but firm. "You made yourselves look like monsters." The counselor said nothing. Hours later, a new transmission arrived, short, encrypted, and human. When decoded, it revealed a simple message: "We will not strike again unless you do. The stars are yours to share, not to rule. Remember that." Attached to the message was a single image Earth, shining blue and peaceful, surrounded by faint glimmers of other colonies. Other worlds rebuilt from the ashes, the meaning was clear. Humanity had no need for vengeance. They had already won, but the message wasn't just a warning, it was an invitation. Days later, something unexpected happened. A small human transport ship entered Council space, unarmed. It requested permission to land on our chalice. "Deny it," said the counselor immediately, but the Voth elder raised his hand. "No, let them come." The counselor hesitated. "After everything they've done?" "Yes," said the elder, "because if they wanted war, we'd already be dead. Maybe they're offering something else." The order was given. Hours later, the human ship descended gently over the city, its hull gleaming silver under the sun. The people gathered in silence as the landing ramp opened from within. A single human stepped out. Not a soldier this time, but a woman dressed in light armor, unarmed. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held something ancient resolve. In grief, she looked around at the crowd. Then, up at the council tower. "I come not to threaten," she said, her voice echoing through the city's broadcast systems, clear and steady. "I come to remind you that peace is not the same as silence. You silenced too many for too long." She raised her hand, revealing a small sphere glowing with soft blue light. "This contains the history your council erased: every colony, every voice, every world you destroyed. Humanity will share it freely with every species that was once your subject." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This is not revenge," she continued. "It's truth. And truth is something you cannot hide behind your laws anymore." Then she placed the sphere on the ground, where it floated into the air and projected an image of the galaxy alive, vast, full of color. Every erased world reappeared, marked not in red, but in white light. "Choose your next actions carefully," she said, "because next time, humanity won't need fleets to stop you. The galaxy itself will." She turned and walked back to her ship. The crowd didn't move, didn't speak. As the vessel lifted into the sky, the people of Arcalis watched in silence, not in fear this time, but in understanding. In the council chamber, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, the elder whispered, "It seems humanity has taught us something we forgot long ago." The counselor nodded slowly, eyes distant. "That power means nothing without memory, far above, unseen in the endless dark." The human fleet drifted once more between the stars, waiting, and reminding the galaxy with every silent beacon they left behind. Humanity remembers. "Always," you said. The galaxy was quiet again. Too quiet. Months had passed since humanity's last transmission. The Council's fleets remained grounded, its leaders fractured, its influence fading into dust. Worlds once bound by fear were beginning to speak freely. The great galactic order centuries old was unraveling, thread by thread. But deep within the void, beyond the rim of mapped space, something stirred. A single human vessel floated silently among the stars. Its name, the Sentinel. On its bridge stood Captain Arya Velda, same woman who had delivered the sphere of truth to Arcalis. Her eyes were fixed on a glowing display before her, showing thousands of dots scattered across the galaxy points of light representing every free world. "They're rebuilding," said her second-in-command. "A tall man named Dravenholt. The council's collapsing faster than we predicted." Arya nodded slowly. "Good, but they won't fall quietly. Power never does." Draven hesitated. "And what about us? What does humanity do now?" Arya looked out through the viewport, where distant stars shimmered like silver dust. "We wait and we watch. The galaxy isn't ready for what comes next." He frowned. "You think they'll try to rebuild the council?" "They always do," she replied softly. "Those who tasted control will always hunger for it again. But this time, we're not alone." Her eyes drifted to a small hologram flickering on her wrist, a network of signals spreading through the galaxy. Dozens of alien species had joined the human alliance, united not by fear, but by shared purpose. They had all suffered under the council. And now, they wanted something better. Captain Draven said quietly. "Incoming transmission from the Outer Rim colonies. Priority 1, put it through." The hologram shifted, revealing the face of a Rethari envoy, one of the insectoid species that had nearly been wiped out by the council's purges. "Human command," the envoy said, his voice trembling. "We've detected movement. Old council ships rearming in secret. They've formed a new alliance. They call themselves the Restoration Order." Arya's expression hardened. "How many?" "Thousands," the envoy replied. "And they're building more. They say humanity must be contained before it's too late." Silence filled the bridge. The crew exchanged worried looks. Draven spoke first. "They're going to strike again." Arya didn't answer immediately. She turned back toward the stars, her reflection faint in the glass. "They never learn," she whispered. "But neither do we forget." She turned sharply. "Prepare the fleet, ma'am. Send word to every allied system. Activate the Sentinel protocol. If the Restoration Order wants to test us, they'll find the sky darker than before." Draven nodded and began relaying the command. Across the stars, hidden fleets powered up from dormancy. Engines flared, shields hummed, and human and alien ships alike turned toward the coordinates of the threat. Back on Arcalis, in the crumbling council tower, the new leaders of the so-called Restoration Order gathered. Holograms flickered over the round table, showing various species, all once proud council members. "They've grown too strong," one of them hissed. "They share technology freely. They are uniting the weak. Soon, they'll rule everything." Another slammed his clawed hand onto the table. "Then we strike first. The galaxy must remember who's in charge." But an older voice interrupted, a voice calm and tired. It was the former head counselor. "You still don't understand," he said slowly. "You can't make the galaxy forget humanity. They've changed everything." "Then we erase them," another snapped. The old counselor shook his head. "You tried that before? It didn't end well." Still the others ignored him. War plans unfolded across the holographic table routes, shipyards, weapons, targets, and far away, on the bridge of the Sentinel, Captain Arya watched their transmissions through intercepted data feeds. She smiled faintly. "They never change," she murmured. "But we do." She looked at her crew. "No more warnings. No more speeches. This time, we end it before it begins." The fleet began to move. Thousands of ships, human and alien alike, from the darkness of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming like midnight metal. They spread across the void, forming a massive defensive ring around the border worlds. Draven turned toward her. "Orders, Captain?" Arya's voice was quiet but firm. "Hold position. Let them come." Hours later, the first wave of the Restoration Order ships appeared. Old Council warships repaired, repainted, and filled with soldiers who still believed in dominance. Their weapons glowed crimson against the black. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to vanish as the two armadas faced each other in silence. Then a message came through. "This is Supreme Commander Relkar of the Restoration Order," the voice boomed. "Surrender your fleets and dismantle your so-called alliance. Humanity's reign ends here." Arya leaned forward slightly, her tone calm. "Commander Relkar," she said. You misunderstand. Humanity doesn't reign. We remember. Before he could respond, her final command echoed through every ship in the fleet. Fire. The darkness exploded into light. Beams of blue and gold tore through the void, shattering enemy formations before they could react. The Restoration Order ships fell one after another, their wrecks scattering like ash among the stars. But it wasn't rage that guided the human alliance. It was precision, unity, and memory. Every ship fought not for vengeance, but for peace that could finally last. Hours later, silence returned to the battlefield. The enemy was gone. Arya stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars now free of warships. Draven approached quietly. "It's over," he said. She nodded. "For now. Gotta." He hesitated. "Do you think they'll ever stop coming?" Arya sighed. "Maybe when they finally understand what we were trying to tell them." She looked out into the endless black, her reflection fading against the stars. "We never wanted to rule," she whispered. "We just wanted to be heard." And as the sentinel turned toward the distant glow of Earth, the galaxy watched and wondered, was this the end of the Council's legacy, or just another beginning? In the silence that followed, one signal pulsed through every system comm, steady and eternal. Humanity remembers. And this time, so does the galaxy.